Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today at Juanette's Crafting Corner. Before we get started, I would like to thank these people for their comments. It was interesting. Several people, Annette, Carol, Susan, Jean, many people commented that their doctors had also told them to stay out of the sun. Natalie, when I mentioned about doing my pages first, decorating them all, and then sewing them into a journal, she also does that. Diana, her little doggies are named Half Pint and Frenchie. Diana always comments on every single one of my videos and has for many, many years. And she always tells me to give Fiona a little hug. This girl, East Girl, she's new to journal making, so welcome. Janet is a new subby, welcome. And so thank you for your comments. Well, you guys know I was recently at a retreat and in Pennsylvania, and there were many people there that were very new at journal making. I think one person had only been introduced to journal making about 9 months previously. And I was surprised. Many of the attendees were very new at it. And so when I showed them the fabric that I had brought, multiple people said, "Oh, I don't use any fabric in my journals." And I thought, well, maybe it's because they don't know how to use it. I use a lot of fabric in my journals. So I'm going to just show you some of the pages that I have created, putting some fabric on the pages just so that maybe I can give them some inspiration and you guys some inspiration on how to use fabric. Here's a piece of fabric here. It had a bunch of French names on it. And so I just cut it out and glued it on to that page. Here is some things that I did in which I also added lace, which you can use in your journals a lot. This just adds a little bit extra. This is a piece of antique French lace that I just stapled up to the top of this page. The same here. I just bunched it up and stapled it to the top there. And then a similar example here where I just took a piece of a lace that looks like it maybe was a little bit of a doily type thing, and I just glued it onto the page there. On this page, I sewed it to the top and did a little up tuck there. I'm still debating on whether or not I'm done with this. I feel it needs a little bit more. So I might do some slow stitching and add something on top of that. I think I need to do that. It just looks a little bit too plain for me. So I'm going to set that aside so I don't forget to do that. One of the other things you can do is bunch it up and create a tab. If you're careful, you can add fabric without causing a lot of bulk. Here I just added a tiny piece of fabric onto this journaling card here, just glued it there. So again, if I was to write on this journaling card, it's very flat. That did not add any bulk at all. But again, it just adds another element. to your journal. This is not per se fabric, I would call it a trim, but it's some velvet trim that I've added there. And the thing about the velvet trim that I'm really enjoying is it helps the card, the journaling card, not move because it's kind of rough on the underside. So it doesn't move a lot, as to where sometimes belly bands, the thing will move. Now here I just took a piece of the Tim Holtz. A lot of this is Tim Holtz fabric because it is in my shop. I just bunched up a little bit of the Tim Holtz fabric and glued it onto that page. Once again here, I just took a piece of the fabric and I wrapped it around that tag. So again, it doesn't add bulk, but it adds something else besides paper in your journals. And then I took a piece of the pink fabric and just did a little tab there. And again, it's flat. Once again, just taking a piece of the fabric and wrapping it around the top of this tag. Once again, just on that tag, little piece of fabric and a lace belly band. On this one, I die cut out a rectangle, and then I glued a piece of lace on the inside, and so it peeks through there. I love that effect. And again, it's flat. It did not add bulk there. On this page here, I just took a couple of pieces of fabric and attached them to this faux French label. And so they're just there, and a little bit of a lace ruffle on the outside. The same thing here, just a small piece of fabric. Now this does add a little bit of bulk here, but I thought this pink button looked pretty there, so all I did was hand stitch it onto this page here. It's a little bitty pink button, and then I just came up through the button, and as opposed to normally how you would sew on a button, what I did is I came up, I went down and then came up and then tied it in a knot so there was little strings left on that. Once again, not necessarily fabric, but some velvet trim that I have done 3 strips along here, and it has created a tuck spot. And the nice thing about this kind of a tuck spot, you can see whatever is tucked in there through those slits there. And then here I've added a little bit of my fuzzy cotton tape onto the top of that tag. And then here I took a hanky, cut it into, a similar of at an angle. It's embroidered, a basket, and I sewed it onto this page here. And then here I've taken just a little bit of lace and glued it to the top. I will probably come back and sew it over the top there, but I created just this little bit of a flip, and it makes this page look a little bit better. If I only had that, yes, it's pretty, but that adds just a little bit of an extra element. And then on this glassine bag, I've added a little bit of lace. And then lastly is actually taking a full piece of fabric that I printed, and this is Rachel's Italian Ladies. This is all fabric here. And what I did is I took a second piece of coffee dyed fabric, laid it over the other side so that it looked a little pretty. I've added this tuck spot of this fabric, and what I did is I sewed it onto the fabric first. This piece I sewed it onto here before I attached it to this piece because I didn't want the stitching to show through here, but I guess it wouldn't be bad. But I sewed it onto there, cut down the center, and then just did a little bit of slow stitching to make that angle down there so you would know. And then I took some fabric trim here and put it through that little eyelet hole. So there's a lot of fabric here. On this page, I glued this glassine bag on here, but before I did, I added some lace and some fabric on both sides. So those are some things that I've already done with fabric. Now, I have this sheet of vellum that I printed on, and it's going to go in the journal as a page. But I don't know about you guys, but when I have worked with vellum before, when you fold it in half, it sometimes cracks and falls apart. So what I thought I would do is take some of this beautiful pink Tim Holtz fabric. I apologize, I'm all out of the pink, but I think I still have green and yellow. And like I said, teal will be next. So what I'm going to do to strengthen this up is I'm going to add some fabric to it. And so then when I sew that in my journal, it will be nice and strong. So I'm just going to take a little bit of a glue stick and first attach it here. And then I will take it to my sewing machine and actually sew down both sides. And that will make that page a little bit stronger. And then again, it just adds some little something to it. Actually, you know what I could do? I think I'm going to do that. I'm just going to bring that around and add that there. Let's just add a little bit more here. So once again, adding fabric to your journal pages. So I will take that to my sewing machine and sew it once it dries. Now I have a couple of other pages here that I thought I might work on. Once again, these are from Medieval Mirage, her new kit called, what's it called? Fresco, oh gosh, I can never remember. Fresco Fragments, okay? And I thought, here's some pretty pages that I could add fabric to. Let's see. There was one in particular, this one here, because it's pretty light there. I thought, let's add some fabric onto that page. So let's trim it down. I hope everyone is doing good. I'm hanging in there. Yesterday was my first day back at the gym after being sick. And I think I may have told you, I actually hired a personal trainer to help me with training a little bit so that I don't get injured. And he's so good. He's a young man. He's probably all of about 30. And he takes his time with this old lady, showing me stretches and stuff like that. So, and the other nice thing is he does it in such a way that, for instance, today I am not sore at all. So let's add something to this page. What I thought I might do is add some seam binding. So let's pull in some of my colors of my seam binding. I've got a lot of pretty colors. That's too matchy. Maybe some blue. Let's see, not that. That's kind of pretty. That's also pretty. I think the pink is too similar. Now, by the way, I'm going to show you, I got this seam binding. It's called, let's see if I can find look at, she gave me a free gift. Ooh, that's kind of pretty on there. I like that. Let's see if I can find the name. There's something here. My Scrap Cabin Shop. If you need seam binding, this is the gal to go to. She's got beautiful, beautiful colors of seam binding. I have tons of pink, and I should use a bunch of pink up. But I don't know, I like, you guys are probably yelling at me which one to use. I think I'm going to use that one. I like that it's a little bit contrasting. And so I'm going to show you how to add seam binding to an edge of a page. Let's see if I can find an end here. There it is. Just going to pull that through. Ooh, isn't that pretty? I love that. So I'm going to start, I'm going to put it on this side of the page. So I'm going to start up at the top, and I'm just going to add a little bit of the seam binding first, and then I will add more and more glue. Because what happens is if you do it to the full length, the glue will dry out. Come on. Okay, and then I will ruche it up a little bit. And then I will come back and sew this on here. So I'm just going to kind of bring it up on top of each other, back and forth. Yeah, so I'm not too tired today. I still am doing my breathing treatments though. I tell you, just when you have asthma, it just lingers on forever. Come on. And like I said, I will come back and sew this once this glue kind of dries. And then that way I make sure that it stays on permanently. Pascal, my son, is later shifts today. He goes into work at 1, which I guess is okay, but I don't like that he gets off at 10 o'clock at night. Because I do like to take him to work. He doesn't drive. And so that means me staying up till past 10 to pick him up from work. And last night I was really fighting staying awake. I was laying in bed watching a program, and I kept falling asleep. And then I would wake up and look at the clock to see what time it was so that I could remember to pick him up from work. But that added a little bit extra there. So I will let that dry, and then I will come back and sew it. So I did take it to my sewing machine, and I did a little zigzag stitch down the side of that to hold that in place. And I did the same thing here, just a small little zigzag stitch up at the top to hold that lace in there well. And then remember, I told you I was going to go down both sides here on this vellum piece to strengthen this up so that it stayed together well, because like I said, vellum can tend to tear. Now remember, I was talking about this piece and how I just felt it needed a little bit more, that corner tuck. So I came in with some of that seam binding, and I just slow stitched it on the top there. But once again, I think it needs a little bit more. And so I thought I would come in here once again with some of the Tim Holtz fabric. And this is very subtle. This little piece right here, it's a floral background. And I thought, let's just slow stitch a small piece onto that. Let's see. You know what I ought to do is find some purple thread. Let me look through my purple threads. I have it right here. Maybe that's what I ought to use, is some purple thread and do some French knots there. Oops. Oh, made you guys dizzy there, didn't I? Oh, let's see here. I don't think it quite matters which purple. That one will work. Yeah, let's just thread up a needle with some purple and add a couple of French knots there. And that will add just a little bit extra there. What I think I'm going to do is just take 3 strands. This is 6-stranded DMC. Let me find a needle here that will work. This one will work. And then we'll just add a little bit more purple up there. I can get this threaded here. Yeah, that'll work. I think I may have mentioned that when I am creating a journal page, I look at it over and over and over again, just to make sure it's what I want in the end, what I want it to look like. So I'm going to put this at an angle so it looks purposeful. And I'm just going to come in the center of a couple of these flowers and do some French knots. And I'm just going to do, since I've got quite a bit of thread, I'm only going to do two wraps. Oh, and I went right through the right through the the knot. And then that ties this fabric into the little seam binding I have there. So to do a French knot, I'm right-handed. You wrap your thread around your needle. I'm doing it twice. You can do it one time or 3 times. And then you just wrap it around and pull it through. That isn't quite center, but c'est la vie. Let's go over here. And that will attach this piece of fabric onto that corner piece, and then it will just look, I think, a little bit better. I need to finish cutting my Florentine paper. It comes in really large sheets, and so I cut it down to each large sheets will be cut down into 4 sheets that are, 13 and a half by 9 3/4. It does take a really long time to do that because I can only do 2 sheets at a time, even using my rotary cutter. And so I need to do that. So I make sure I have more than enough in my shop. And let me just tell you that I am limiting in my mega pack, which is 32 different designs of Florentine paper. I'm limiting two packs per customer. And the reason I'm doing that is I kept thinking, first of all, my price is much less than other shops out there. And even though the mega pack is $50, what did I figure out? Each page was $1.62 or something like that. I was afraid that someone would come in and buy up a bunch of it and then resell it in their shop. And I just, I guess it doesn't matter that, because I would still be making, a small profit, but that's a lot of work for me to do. I know, I think one lady recently did that with my silk thread. She came in and she bought every single one of the silk packs of silk threads I had. And again, because it was a good price, I thought, I wonder if she's going to resell that, because a lot of the colors were the same. And I don't know, just, funny how I am. Okay, so let's see what that looks like on that page now that I've added that. I think that added a little bit more to that page. So see how adding fabric can really create a really nice addition to your journal pages. Now, to me, as I look at that, that's perfect. That's complete. It looks so much better. Now, I did want to show you why there is purple there. It's because the envelope has some purple on it. It's just a nice little envelope from a kit, and I've had this journaling card in it. So that's why there's a little bit of purple there, is there's purple on the front of the envelope. So we're just going to tuck that back in there. And then I did one more page that I want to share with you. This is some music paper. And what I did is I took some fabric and put it down what would be the part that will be sewn into the signature. I did a little bit of decorative stitching on both sides. And then it has an antique French letter in it with French book page, some washi tape there. But on this page here, I just added again a little bit of a fabric ruffle in each corner. So I need to just add probably something back here, although we've got that beautiful fabric there. But anyway, I hope this gave you some ideas for using fabric in your journals. I think they add a lot to the pages, and I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you have a beautiful day doing lots of creative things, and I will see you on Thursday for Quick Tip Thursday. Thanks, and bye-bye.